Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smiling Homeschooler. My name is Ben Wilson, and today's topic is something that resonates with just about every homeschooling family, and that's busyness and balance, and how to balance with that, but how to take care of all of that. We recently asked our followers over on Facebook what feels the hardest to manage right now, and another common answer we were given was trying to juggle school, work, church, activities, social events, and still find meaningful time as a family in the middle of all that. It can leave parents feeling stretched thin, overwhelmed, and wondering if they're focusing on the right things. So this week, our goal is to bring some encouragement as we talk about busyness versus importance, and when it's okay to say yes to, and when it's okay to say no, and how to guard your family time in a world that just never slows down. But before we begin, we just want to say thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're an amazing math curriculum, and if you haven't checked them out, you should do so over at teachingtextbooks.com. We'd also like to thank Samaritan Ministries, a community of Christians who help pay one another's medical bills. They make it possible for families to take a step of faith as they make career changes or ministry opportunity or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more and support us through the link in the show notes. But all right, let's get going. Here's my dad, Todd Wilson.
Well, it's cold here in northern Indiana, where it's always cold. At least it feels cold right now. Ben has a car that's not running, and my car's not running, and I don't know if cold exasperated those things, but it is just bitterly cold outside. And it looks like lots of the country has cold spots. Even friends down in South Florida, I mean, they almost hit 30. Of course, it warms up to 65 and 70 that day. But it's been cold and snowy here. It'd be good for Christmas, actually. But I'm done for it. I'm done with it now.
Yeah. You start getting to that point where, like, at night, it just feels like not dangerous, but just like an edge to it, where you're like, man, this is something else.
And you can tell a difference. I mean, when you wake up in the morning between a 30 or 40 degree morning and a -6 degree morning, it just feels like the wood in the floors is cold, it just creaks differently.
Yeah.
And Ben has an old house, and I've got an old house, but his house is even older than mine.
Yeah.
And he's got old radiators, which are so wonderful that you can lean up against them, and they're just so nice and warm.
Yep, and there's just a big melted area for about 50 feet all the way around my house where all the heat's just leaks through the walls and just melts all the snow, Not really, but it feels like it sometimes. Certain parts of my house, it's like or yesterday I was in the living room and I was like, man, this window feels loud, and I noticed it wasn't latched and it was like not cracked but close, so
Right.
it's just like, oh my goodness, how much does that cost us? And it's also sick season. The other night, 2 nights ago, Miles woke up, was like crying, not just like kind of fussing, but actually like crying. So I was like, well, maybe he needed a bottle or something. So I went to get it, came back in. We had him like a little sleep tent. No, little sleep tent, open it up, and I'm just hit by a wave of vomit. And, so that's that fun where you're just like, oh, he threw up 100% and he had. That's always fun way to wake up in the night. So hopefully
it's always good to know that too, when you find out his brothers and sisters are spending the night at your house.
Yep, exactly. So it's always good.
Because the kids are spending the two of them are spending the night at our house tonight. They've been asking for a little while, so tonight's the night. We're gonna try to make it fun, even though they were upstairs in the attic with Maggie. Maggie's here, and Maggie was wearing dress up. Of course, Maggie is married. Maggie's wearing dress up that on the tag says 8 to 10 years old, and it's like she looks scary, actually. And she's up there, they're square dancing, doing the high step, and it was
but everyone crazy. Wants an aunt like Maggie. She's awesome. So. She is the crazy aunt, though. You know which one it's gonna be. So, but
yeah. Well, hey, we're going to go ahead and just jump in because a couple weeks ago, or maybe not a week ago, I asked people over at Facebook, some of the things that they're facing right now. And one of the things they were facing, we talked about one last week, which is a great discussion, I thought. I can't remember what it was about, but it was great.
Arguing and bickering.
Arguing and bickering. And this week, it's kind of like several moms ask, how do you balance it all? How do you balance school and church commitments, kids' work schedules and adult and work schedules, family time, social events, and on it goes. And I thought that'd be a great conversation to have because, there is that rub, and everybody feels it. When you ask someone, I mean, you say, "How you doing?" They'll go, "Oh, busy,"
Mm-hmm.
And even in fact, I find myself answering that too often, and I know everybody else is busy, so I'm trying not to answer that so often. But Ben, does this feel like a busy time in your life? Does it feel like a busy time, not just in school, because we're homeschoolers who add school to everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's always busy. I mean, even if it's not, busyness in terms of like we're going to be, to events every single day or whatever. It's just the busyness of, taking care of a family and getting things done. And you're like, well, we need to work on this, or I need to help this person with this thing, or, I've got this doctor's appointment today and one tomorrow and dentist appointments yesterday, whatever. Just all that kind of stuff. So it really always just feels nonstop. And then there's also like the added, thing that like I'm not very good at just being okay with it not doing something. So even if we did have a quiet time, I'm like, well, I should be probably working on something or doing something with the kids, so it's just you just fill the time really quickly. And I know Rissa's had appointments like 4 different days this week, or whatever. So it's just, yeah, it definitely feels pretty nonstop all the time, even in the quiet times, theoretically, of the winter, which it just even ramps up during the summer. So, yeah, I don't think it ever feels like it really stops.
And it's hard to just, I mean, in the midst of the busyness, it's hard to decide, what I should be spending my time on and what I shouldn't. I mean, right now, and I was just thinking about it because I stink. I mean, I think I stink. We've been helping Abe work on a house that he bought about a week ago that he's flipping. And there was a refrigerator there. I don't know if a cat died inside the refrigerator or what, but whatever was pouring out of it smells about as bad as something could smell. And I can't even smell anything, and I could smell it, but I feel like it's on my clothes are washing right now, but I feel like my skin and my hair stink, but all that. So I want to help, but I still have lots to do. I have to, lots to do to get ready. And if you're homeschooling, you feel that added pressure of like, I got to teach my kids something or they're going to be stupid, so it's hard to know, what do you say yes to and what do you say no to? I know, like I worked for a guy when I was a pastor, and he struggled because he felt like he always had to fill his time up, he had a father who basically said he was lazy if he wasn't, doing something all the time. And I think, that kind of plays in some of our minds as well. But, when is it okay then? When is it okay to say no to something or yes to something? I was talking to Cal, Ben's brother, this morning, who's 19, and he said, Dad, I've decided I'm going to try to say yes to more. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, just when people ask things, I'm just going to say yes. And yesterday we were running short on cars, and I said, Cal, could we borrow your BMW, his pride and joy, the only thing he owns? And he's like, absolutely. And he was so nice about it. I couldn't understand why,
It's like, what did you break? What did you steal?
I know. Yeah. But then he explained it. And I thought, that's a great thing. But I know for some moms, they just need to be able to say no. Because sometimes I know your mom has trouble saying no. I don't know. Yeah. Does Rissa or I have no trouble. I mean, people go, they're like, can you help? And I'll say, no, I can't. And Debbie will say, Todd, that's your dad. He needs you to help him. And I'm like, I'm busy. I can't help right now.
I mean, I feel it more than you do, I think. I mean, just because, I do feel that guilt probably more like mom does. Marissa's decently good at that, I think. I mean, I think she's okay at it. But, I mean, I do think a big thing, though, is being on the same page. Because, I know we've had conversations with our friends group a lot about this. Is like, it is just so easy to just keep adding things or to want to be the, oh, yeah, we can definitely be there for that or, whatever it is. And then it ends up just taking every day. And then you have no time as a family outside of, just school or whatever it is. So I do think whatever the no's need to be is it needs to be like as a team, hopefully, of we both are on the same page, because it can be easy then for one person to keep saying yes and the other person was like, well, I thought we were going to say no to more things, and then you just have some conflict there, which can be pretty tough. So but I do think,
but what I don't understand is why people think it's wrong to say no.
Yeah.
I mean, really, because I know sometimes your mom would rather just like I can't hear you. If I don't hear you, ask me, then it's okay. Or sometimes I know for her and for others, they'll say yes, but then they're mad about it. And I don't know. I'm like, well, if you didn't want to go to that, why did you say you wanted to? And, that same thing. Well, I felt guilty. And I'm like, yeah, but now you're mad. Which is worse, feeling guilty or mad?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, but I don't really know how you completely avoid that. I mean, totally. I mean, because you do have there's obligation. There is the family ties of where it's just like, well, they helped me last time, so I should probably help them, even though it sounds super convenient. And I don't think like everything has to be convenient is the marker, because obviously sometimes the hard things are important, even if it isn't convenient. But I do think if it's costing you, if you feel at all like there is doing damage to your family, I think that has to be a line where you say, well, my family is more important than having my friends all think I'm available at any time. They ask me, share, someone in the chat said that's called people pleasing, so you don't want to just be a people pleaser and that's your only reason for doing it, but it can be tough.
Because really when you're people pleasing, sometimes it's not even just about pleasing people. It's about pleasing. It's so they're not mad at you. Really, it's so you feel better about yourself, not so they'll feel better about their thing, But I think you're right. I think that, as we talk about balancing things, I never liked the word balance, because it always felt like, you do enough to get by. You get just close enough, you don't really, you just do enough. And I think, the thing is that we have to make some choices of things, again, what we say all the time, of things that matter. I know for moms, and, for moms, a lot of moms, they spend their days, especially if you have young children or you don't have a lot of children. Sometimes moms feel like they have to entertain their kids all day long, and I just think it feels exhausting. It feels like you can't get other things done. Like you're like their literal cruise boat, attendant, that when they go, hey, mommy, can we play Play-Doh? Can we do this? That it's not just getting, the Play-Doh out. They want you to do it with them. And again, that's just not always possible. But I think even more so for your generation, Ben, that feeling that the moms have to do everything with their kids.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brissa would say that she feels that or not.
I don't think she does as much. She definitely does a lot with them. And I feel that. I mean, I enjoy it, but I also I want to be able to be engaged with them in the evenings and stuff like that. But, but I do think especially with social media and stuff like that, there's all these cool posts of, the mom, doing all these, neat, super, artsy crafts or whatever with the kids and all that kind of stuff. So maybe there's that extra thing. I don't know what it is, but, I definitely see the pressure. But yeah, I don't know how you would do it. I mean, if you do it all the time, I mean, someone's got to get something done sometime. So, and I think it's healthy for them to be able to just play on their own. And some of my favorite times are when I see the kids all just interacting together happily, even though it usually quickly turns into something, more not happily, but I do think that's a really important thing for them, just to have that time together as siblings, to just play. And, a parent does change the dynamic, whether for good and bad. I mean, maybe a little bit,
right.
But it's
well, it is funny because you said something that I did not have on our little kind of sheet that we were going to talk about, and that's, you said something about when you see it on social media. That is one of those things that has been added to the mix that was not there when you were little, when I was a parent of little kids. I didn't have any phone or anything else that was wanting my attention, and that steals, if you got to balance things, maybe that could be one of those things that you could toss. Maybe not like get rid of your phone, but maybe at a certain point you set it aside because, I know my kids will say, how many, they'll say to each other, how many hours did you watch it, or are you on it this week? And it's really a phenomenal amount of hours, really. And it's not constant, but it is all the time. And I think, what did we used to do when there was no weather to check on our phone? We just looked outside, and if it, or we heard it on the radio, or television, we just didn't do that. And it has. And I would say, and again, this was not like a pre-planned thing. If you feel like if you're not able to balance everything, maybe if you reduce that, maybe it would feel like the load wasn't so great in some areas. I don't know. It's just a lot.
Yeah. But I will also say, I've heard people say, and I've said, oh, well, when it gets less busy, then I'll start doing these other things, but I do think it's also important as one, it's not just going to all of a sudden just stop being busy. So, those kind of things, it's like we have to take the lead over that. If that is something where we have to cut back, then we have to do it because it's probably just not naturally going to fall into, into place. Or if it's not going to happen and we still have these things that we're just waiting to do, then sometimes those things will never come around. Like if you're like, me and my husband want to take a trip or a getaway, or we want as a family, we want to go to a state park or whatever, but it's just too busy. Chances are it's never going to happen, because it's just always going to be busy. So I think, sometimes you do have to be a little bit ruthless when it comes to that saying no, if you just aren't getting the time ever as a family, to do some of those other things that are important, but all the other, quote unquote, important things are crowding it out, and Alyssa said here, though, if you're not tired, are you doing it right? Tired isn't always bad. I would say, yeah, 100%. You're going to probably be tired. That is true.
Oh, I think if you got kids, you're just always tired. I mean, you're just always tired. I think if you drop into bed, like refreshed, you check to see if all your kids are accounted for.
Yeah.
There may be a reason. Hey, well, we should take a commercial. I was signaling to Ben on my video, which you can't see me, I forgot. And so I'm holding up my hand to make the commercial sound. And he just keeps talking. And I'm like, how long, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you can't see me. So anyway, we want to thank Redeem Health Share by Samaritan Ministries for making today's show possible. If you're like others I've talked to, maybe the changes in the Affordable Care Act have you worried. And I know that has worried a lot. Can I encourage you to check out Redeem Health Share? It's Christians helping other Christians with their healthcare needs. And I think it just might be the solution to your concerns. They have multiple programs and options to fit the budget and season of life that you're in right now. We've been members for over 15 years and couldn't be happier. You can learn more at Redeem Health Share in the show notes below.
Also, we want to thank Teaching Textbooks for making this all possible. We talk about them every week, but we don't want that to just become taken for granted because they are an amazing curriculum. Math time can be a time that is tough for a lot of people. A lot of kids, it traditionally was not always the favorite subject, but I think Teaching Textbooks can change that. If you haven't used them, it's engaging, it's fun, it keeps it lighthearted. It takes some of that conflict out because you just go through it, you work through it, and it's understandable, and you don't have so much tension sometimes. So if you haven't checked them out, you definitely should. They're an amazing company, and you can try a free trial over at teachingtextbooks.com.
Hey, Ben, as we're kind of talking about, like maybe within, a homeschool family, during that day, and it gets too overwhelming. Do you think it's okay to use crutches, like the TV or the iPad? How do you feel about that? I know, there have been times during my parenting life where we were like militant, like, we're not going to do that. Our kids are going to, and then you just get tired and you need a break, or you're feeling down. You go turn on the TV, you know?
I mean, I don't know if I like it, but it's necessary, I think. I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have to have something, if you need a quick break, I feel like if you feel like everything is just getting worse, if the situation is just devolving into more and more anger because everyone's just freaking out and whatever it is, and you need a 10-minute break, I think you sometimes just got to do it.
That's why the Star Wars movies are in trilogies.
Yeah.
So you can and just
Yeah,
go from
totally.
do all 6 and
Yeah.
have a great day.
Watch all 40 episodes of Bluey in one go. But I mean, so sometimes it's just those days. Maybe it's day. Rissa shared. It's probably a month or two ago at this point, but she's been having a really rough time. That she has good days and bad days, and this week has been a little bit worse. So there have been days where the TV goes on and she needs a break for a little bit to just be able to lay on the couch or to read your Bible or whatever it may be. And sometimes if you don't have extra help, which you probably don't, then that is, I think, okay. Just give yourself the grace that it's not every day. It's not all the time. Even though Dad likes to joke about it, he wasn't raised on TV, and you just have to do it sometimes, I think.
Captain Kangaroo. There is nothing better than Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Green Jeans. Yes. So I think it's perfect. And we don't want that to be a steady diet, but sometimes there are seasons. Like you were talking about, Ben, and maybe it is every day. Maybe it's every day at a certain time where I know that for Debbie, we had nap times. Even as our kids got a little bit older, they had some quiet time. Now, I'm not talking about teenagers, but I'm talking about when they were second and third grade. Sometimes they would go into their rooms and just had an hour where my wife could get some things done. Because I know she was not a very good mom. She's not a very good helping others if you feel like you have this big, always to-do list that you can never get to. And I'll tell you, too, that sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, it helps if I can get a good night's sleep. So if I can go to bed a little bit early and, sleep in, maybe not sleep in, but if I can just I can kind of control the going to bed at night. I can't always control the getting up. But if I can go to bed a little early, I feel so much more energized. I feel like it's easier to balance things, or at least it doesn't feel so overwhelming. But we've kind of talked about, different aspects of a homeschool family. We've talked about, family, or I know some moms have to work, or, church. And I would say, and I even posted today on Facebook, like, if you're a homeschool mom, that is your ministry. You don't have to feel guilty about not doing other ministries. You're not working in church, you're not helping in the choir, you're not doing some of the things. That's okay. You don't need to feel guilty about it. But are there times you think that we need to take a little break from school? Maybe that school can be too much. Or is the school the most important thing in what we do as homeschoolers?
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing we do as homeschoolers is raising our children. So obviously that incorporates school, but school is incorporated into just life, So doing life as a family is the most important thing. So everything else, kind of facilitates that, and I think can help that. But so organize, as we've said lots of times, sometimes the organized part of school and raising your children may have to take a back burner if it's just too much going on. Maybe it's you've got an elderly parent that is going through maybe the last months or something like that, and that's okay to have that be on a very far back burner than than normal, or whatever else it may be.
It's just life.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear people who say, "Oh, we're having a baby," and I'm thinking about taking a few weeks off. If I can't even think of a better lesson than to have a baby in your house. I mean, because they're gonna have babies when they grow up, and to see how that interacts, I would count every day as school. As they're interacting, as they're taking care of each other, as they're doing some other extra responsibilities, and those seasons, maybe the books aren't opened, or maybe very few are opened, and I think that is perfectly okay.
But something we have, and we've had this conversation with friends in our group, but it's something that's relevant right now for us because we are in birthday season in our family. What about the extended family? Because that can be something where it does feel very obligation based, and thankfully in our situation, we all enjoy that time together, and it's something we want to do, but still it's a huge, it's a big time commitment. I mean, this last week we did something Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday, I think, or something like that. So, I mean, it was like 4 nights out of a 5 or something like that. So do you think that's something that, is a must, or is it a negotiable, or do you sometimes have to say no even to those kind of things?
It's totally negotiable. I mean, and really, I think your mom does a really good job. She's always good about, and I'll say to the moms who are older moms, you know, when you, don't make your kids feel guilty for not being at birthday parties. Debbie will say, "Hey, we're celebrating on this night. If you want to come, you can come. If you don't, that's okay too." And I think there are just times where you communicate and say, "We'd like to be there, but we just can't. We've been gone 4 nights in a row. We're just not going to be able to be there this time." And I think everybody's going to have to be okay with that. That's part of guarding your own family time. And, as parents of adult children, we want that. We want you to guard your family time. So I think that's totally okay. Well, I hear someone crying upstairs, so I'm going to bring this to a close. I don't think it's one of Ben's kids because his are older, but I do think it's one of the other 3 young kids that we have in our house right now. But I want to just say, as we're talking about balance, this is a tough one. And I think Ben's right. I think you're just always going to be tired, or whoever the comment was, you're always going to go to bed tired. You're never probably going to feel like it's all balanced out perfectly. I think that's just part of the struggle. I think there is a time where everything is going to suddenly stop. It's going to be like my parents, who are in a assisted living place right now. And I just talked to them a few minutes ago because I think they were just bored and they just wanted to talk to somebody. So there is going to be a time. It'll probably be here way before you're ever ready for it. So I would embrace these times of busyness and of exhaustion. And I would do what Ben said. I would guard your family. I would say that's the thing that I'm going to protect above all else. You don't have to be mean to say no. You can just say, hey, it's not going to work out. And that's okay. I know when I was a pastor, there would be people who would call me.
Super tough.
They would call and say, my husband is about ready to walk out the door. Can you come over? And I would say, I'm watching a family movie with a family video with my kids. I can't come over right now. And I can remember one lady going, well, you're kidding me, right? And I said, no. I said, you didn't get here overnight, and I'm not going to solve the problem. But I'll come tomorrow because I cared a lot more about my family, because I knew too many pastors whose family didn't like them because they were so busy doing something else. And, even in school, wouldn't it be a tragedy if our kids didn't like us because we were too busy doing school or too busy doing something? So Mom, if you need to say no, go ahead and say no. Say it nicely, and you guard your family. Maybe you need to take it. Maybe you've been back in school, 3 weeks, 2 weeks after Christmas, but you needed a little break. Go ahead, watch TV, have the kids watch some TV or play on the iPad for a limited time, and don't give up. Okay. Well, have a great week. I'm going to go upstairs right now. And we hope to see you next week, and keep on smiling.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We appreciate you being here. And thank you to Teaching Textbooks for making the Smiling Homeschooler possible. They're an amazing math curriculum and an amazing company. Go check them out at teachingtextbooks.com. Also, thank you to Samaritan Ministries, a community of Christians that help pay one another's medical bills, and helping families take a safe step of faith as they feel God's leading in career or ministry changes or in bringing mom home. And you can learn more and support us by clicking the link in the show notes. But have a great week, and don't forget to smile.